Hello and welcome to Central Online. Thank you so much for joining us here again. We've got a very special episode here for you today. We have got an incredible life story from Jim Connon. So we're in lockdown again. It may seem bleak, it may seem hopeless, but we really do believe that today, as you come and as you hear his story, and as we come together to take communion and worship, that you will receive something of hope and something of peace. I'm now going to hand over to the worship team, and Alison is then going to come and she's going to lead us in communion. Enjoy.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In Christ alone my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. And praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one.
Well, here we are just a couple of weeks into January, and already we can say what a year it's been. It's us into lockdown again, the church doors is shut, and there's unrest across the world. On hearing news like this, we can so easily become distracted, focusing on the wrong things, feeling a bit doomy gloomy. But I just want to share a few thoughts today to help us to refocus as we come and share communion together. Matthew chapter 26 gives us a little insight to the events leading up to Jesus being crucified. Judas, who was one of Jesus' disciples, had approached the chief priests at that time and offered to hand Jesus over to them at a price. The price was agreed at 30 pieces of silver. It goes on to say in verse 16, speaking about Judas, and from that moment he sought a fitting opportunity to betray him. And this was speaking about Jesus. We can see here that Judas had been distracted. These was Jesus' last days on earth before he was crucified, and Judas just had money on his mind when he could have been spending time with Jesus. Further on in the chapter, it tells us how Jesus shares with some other of his disciples. He shares about his distress and sadness because he knew it was nearly time for him to be crucified. He asked the disciples to keep watch whilst he went to pray to God his Father. 3 times Jesus came back and found them sleeping. Again, the disciples had been distracted. They were so caught up with their feelings and not a thought for Jesus and how he was feeling at that time. Judas was distracted by money, the material things of the world. And here was other disciples distracted by their own feelings and what they needed at that time. How often do we do the same? Can we take Jesus for granted and be more focused on other things or things that we need? Mark 13:36 says, "If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping." This verse speaks about when Jesus returns. We have to be alert and not found sleeping like the disciples. So as we go into a time of worship and communion, let's not be distracted. Let's take our eyes off what's happening around about us and once again take a few moments to be thankful for Jesus dying for us. But not only that, to realise afresh that he rose again so that we can be saved and have eternal life. When we start to focus on Jesus and all that he has done for us, we find a peace and assurance in knowing that he is in control. As I say, let's now go to a time of worship and take communion together.
The morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till the stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death, and the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored, and the Church of Christ was born. Then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not faint. By his blood and in his name, in his freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings, and praise forever to the King of Kings.
Well, we're here with Jim Connon. Great to have you, Jim. We are in lockdown, so we're a bit distance apart, but we're going to have a good conversation.
Yes.
All about you. So, just before we get started, what would be your favourite snack during lockdown? What would your food be at this point in time?
Well, definitely a Coke Zero with.
Oh, aye. I'm a big Coke Zero fan myself.
I'm off into my chocolate. But I really need to cut down with it.
Anything chocolate?
Cadbury caramel nibble things.
Oh,
I love them.
You love them.
£1 a bag. Definitely one of my favourites. I could scoff a few bags of them in like 5 minutes.
And you thinking that'll continue, or do you get a kind of...
No, well, it's not continued like it was in lockdown.
And then get rid of it now.
Yeah.
Right, well, Jim, let's get started on your life. I want you to tell me about your upbringing, bringing up in the Broch, the good side, the bad side, whatever you want. Tell us how it was when you were younger.
Well, I grew up I'm Broch, born and bred, 159 Buchan Road. But there all my life, that was where I was born into. Grew up, there was my mum and dad, Betty and Francine, my brother Brian. But it was a great place that I grew up at. I had good pals, great pals growing up. The Buchan Road chippy was where we would hang loose at. I spent all my time there as a bairn. But life was really good for for me, for my brother. Ken, my mum and dad, they were both hard-working folk. My dad was a fisherman, my mum worked in the fish. So we never really wanted for anything as regards birthdays, Christmases, and Ken, we had a really good life. Ken, mum and dad taught me well. Ken, I was loved. I never really wanted for nothing. So life was really good for me, early stages of life, Ken.
When was you born then? Mid-70s or?
I was 1975.
1975?
Aberdeen, born in Aberdeen, aye.
So you kind of were brought up into the 80s, so that kind of like era that everybody thinks was the best era to grow up in. So what are the kind of things that you remember of the 80s in the North East of Scotland?
For I mind, can obviously during school and stuff like that, but I mind Top of the Pops, I can mind the music that was in at the time. Duran Duran, if you like.
We are fan.
Transvision Vamp, I loved them. Wendy James, and I can't if you'll mind them, but I was right into them. But I mind my brother, because my brother was right into his music in a big way. And I was younger, I was 5 years, I'm five years younger than my brother was. So he was at a good stereo and stuff, so I was hearing the music playing for his bedroom and stuff. So that's what kind of minds, Simple Minds. But Top of the Pops on the TV, I used to love watching that. I think it was a Thursday night that was on.
Going through academy then, what happened? Did you, again, you've been a fisherman for a long time, so did you go straight to fishing for school?
Well, for me, going through school and stuff, I always kent I was get a D when I left school. I wasn't going to uni, I wasn't going to college. My dad was at fishing, my brother was at fishing. So it was pretty sold out, I kent I was get a D. So even as a bairn, even in academy, I would go, I want to see my dad in the summer holidays, Easter holidays, Tatty holidays, pretty much only chance that I got really. Right. Because I kent that was for I was get a D, and I was get to be committed to doing that. But I loved football, and I was quite good at football. I was captain of the boys' club, Fraserburgh Boys' Club. Martin Buchan started Fraserburgh Boys' Club. I was captain of the school, and I also played for a team in Aberdeen, which was pretty much a big deal at that time. If you got picked for a team in Aberdeen, I mean, it was a team called Tillydrone Rainbow Glass. And that was great. I was a captain, and I loved football. I played in the middle of the park, and we'll live for football. But as I got older, teenager, 13, 14, things started to change, started maybe smoking when I probably shouldn't have been, but that's just kind of things that happen. I was all areens, it wouldn't just be us at our age that was going to the chippy and stuff, or be all areens going to the chippy and on. They'd been drinking, they'd been smoking, and it doesn't take much to get influenced to doing something that folk it's all on you, because you're insecure, you're young, you're naive, and you're wanting to be a part of what all our generations kind of do, and you want to make a name for yourself. So it wasn't long before I had started smoking, and even though I didn't really see it, I didn't ken that it was going to make a change for me. And then I got to the stage, even fourth year in academy, it wasn't really that I wasn't caring about really the exams and stuff like that, because I kind of kent I was going to sea. So pretty much that was me ready to go to sea, and I was at sea by the age of 15. I started in a really good boat called a Connon. My dad was aboard it, and I mean, I had a milk job. I even worked in Cromies that I did, and had a paper room, but I had a milk job, so I went for £20 a week in milk to go away and coming home with hundreds of pounds.
Wow,
So it was a big transition, it was a big change.
And was that at 16 or
15, 16, I don't even think I was 16 if I mind right. This had been a year of 1991 when I went and started to sea. I never went to the fishing course. My brother had went to the fishing course at college, but I just wanted to go away and just have a willingness to learn. My dad wanted me to learn, and because when I went on holidays and stuff like that, I would get to my bed through the night and stuff, but once I had left school and gone away, actually as a crew member, I was near getting to your bed when everybody else was on the deck. So it was tough, it was difficult going for getting your bed every night, to being up sometimes for a couple of days on your feet. But it was just something you had to learn, and something, because it was a commitment that I'd made, I wanted to be a fisherman. And I was never ever bothered with seasickness. A lot of folk can put him off, even though I felt sick when I first went out to sea, but I never ever hid it. But I mind coming home with heaps of money, it was, this is great that it was, and I had all the great intentions. I took out insurances and started putting money away, and life was going to look good. Life looked good for me at that age. I really had a great job, had a dream job, and I was hoping that by the age of 17 I would take cars and stuff like that and settle down in the happier life. But things change,
What happened then? What was it that went on with that?
So as I'd started to see, as I'd said, I'd like ended my fit back in that time. I'd been started smoking, and I would never ever blame OMD for what I did, because it's me myself that made choices. I was never forced to do anything, because of the pals that I had, it didn't affect me, but as I started getting about with folk that were a wee bit older than me, and the smoking, coming home for sea, and then would led to like cannabis, started smoking dope, and didn't see it as an issue. But then the rave scene came to go after that, 1991, 1992, and that was just totally took the Broch by storm that it did. And we just loved it. We loved going to raves, we loved the music, we loved getting high. Before we came it, we'd be taking ecstasy, we'd be taking cocaine, we'd be taking speed, and this was what everybody else was doing,
So was it like, go to see the back of Sunday, let's say late Sunday night, come in like Friday night, Saturday morning, and just... raves for the weekend.
We'd been going to like nightclubs, or we'd been going to tracks at the weekends and stuff like that. I was tracks who had mentally.
That's right.
And I was mine. When I was going to away and I was going to be out, I didn't do it. Back a Sunday night, I'd be away for 10 days at a time and him for 2 or 3. So I would sometimes be away for a good lot of weekends in a row. And I would always be really sick that I was missing a weekend. But even when we started taking ease and speed and getting right into the rave scene in such a big way, even when we did miss the weekends, we would hear in weekend when we came home. So it was through the week, and so much folk was like, they would have their work and through the week, but we would just go into folks' houses and we would just go out party and we'd be up all night. But a big issue for us was that we could never ever come down, because we would be up partying, we'd be up for days at a time, and it would just totally wreck you. And you couldn't sleep or stuff like that. You couldn't get a nap. So, and there was Thames G6 and there was Thames. We had been taking Thames, which was a downer, but that didn't do the trick. That didn't do the trick for us. And then I think it must have been the age of 18, I think it had been, is when we heard of heroin, we'd heard of even cocaine as such as the bad drugs, even though I'd teen cocaine, but heroin was a drug that I would never ever take. There's no way I'll ever go there. No. But once you get to a place in your life that it can start to get for you can't really control what you're doing, because it's got so much ahead of you. But because we had been up partying and raving all the time, we was once introduced to heroin, and when we took it the first time that we did, it totally knocked us out. And we had never ever experienced that. I was geely eggs and stuff, and I go, but they wouldn't do for us heroin was doing to us. So we thought, this is great now.
How did it happen then, Jim? Sorry, but partying, speed, ecstasy, those kind of things, cocaine, it's the party drugs. But then, if it was the decision then, if it happened to say, okay, let's try this heroin.
When I think about it, I think it's because we're searching for something in life. There's definitely some kind of void that makes you want to do this, chasing the buzz, being a part of something, doing for I didn't ken at the time, but I liked what I thought would be cool as being the guy and doing what everybody else was doing, and it was just like chasing after it. And I got some kind of fulfillment out of doing it. It felt great. Yep. At the time it felt great for doing it, but the consequence after it was dire. But we didn't worry about it, because it would pass, and then it became to the time again when it would be great. I was in a relationship at the age of 18, and responsibility was a word that I didn't care nothing about, really. I was 18, and I was by no way was I ever ready to settle down yet. But I was in a relationship, and they ended up, the girl I was with ended up pregnant, and my son Connon was born. But at the age of 18, I can still mind coming home to see my mum telling me that Anne-Marie was pregnant. And that was just the shock, the biggest shock ever, because I'm by no means ready to settle down yet, And so I was now at a choice in my life, what am I choosing to do here, Yep. And I didn't choose to take responsibility and become the dad that I should have been at that time, because I was young, I was naive, I was influenced by what everybody else was doing, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I chose to keep on living the party of life. Nae Connon, as I'd now been introduced to heroin, it was going to want to do to me for the next 19 years of my life, you get.
Aye.
Just crazy that it
Wow.
was.
So 18, so was that 93, 94 kind of time?
Aye. 1994, my loon was born, aye.
Shannon was born. So did that mean that you didn't hate a relationship with him, Jim?
No, I chose to get away from that, even though I did see my loon to start with, and then I was gaps in between and seeing him new and again, but I wasn't in a good place because I was living this life now. I never ever saw the issue that I had as a problem because I was working, I was coming home with good money, even though I had nothing to show for it.
Aye.
But deep down inside, I was starting to deteriorate rapidly, that I was, you can. By this time, the rave scene had started to it was now to go same new, and it was more heroin, it was more downers. The culture, the drug world, if you like, had kind of changed,
Yeah.
and it started becoming so popular around about the Broch, and it wasn't just us that was doing it, it was starting to become more to everybody it was to go again.
Aye. So the pattern, instead of working hard and then partying hard at the raves, it was working hard and then trying to find gear and heroin when you were at home, I suppose.
Yeah.
Was that the pattern for a long time?
For a long time, but even though I thought that I didn't really have the issue that I actually had because I was working, but I mind getting to a place, I can't mind if I'd been about 26 or something, but I mind I'd recognised really that I need to get help here and gone to doctors to see about getting off of it, getting a script. I mind going to the doctors with my dad and getting a prescription, a dihydrocodone, thinking, okay, that'll be me sorted now.
Mm-hmm.
But the power that it had on me at that time was just, I was now in a place where I was really heavily addicted, and it was affecting me. It was affecting me in everything that I did. Again, if I didn't hate, I would be ill and I would be severely nae wheel.
But like many young men of your time, still managed to keep a berth, keep a job on the boat. How does that happen? Because we've spoken to Georgie Lovey, we've spoken to different folk, and there was a lot of guys that were managing to keep their jobs at sea, keep on working somehow. Yeah. How did that happen? How
I think when I look at my own life, my dad taught me how to work. I was a grafter. I still am a grafter today. I've always been taught and brought up in that culture that we had kind of attitude that you have to work for a living and you do it to the best that you can.
Yep.
That's how I kind of flourished and starting in a boat that I did, because it was gone for a milk job to being aboard a boat that was landing 1,600 boxes between the two boats pairing, which was never in your bed, and that was kind of the attitude that I had, and it was torture that it was sometimes, because when you're near wheel, I had so much to look forward to when I was at fishing. I was aboard a boat at sunrise for one of my skippers that kind of treated me like his own loon, because if you're not born into the fishing family, it wasn't as easy to get becoming skipper of a boat or mate of a boat. But the skippers that I was with, took him under his own wing, and I ended up being a mate of the boat, and he put money aside for me in the Collie office. And I was getting up and put my ticket, and I was going to be skipper of the boat. He taught me so much that he did. I would take a boat together out at sea, and I would shift it about the harbour and stuff. But because the choices and the way I was living my life had so much ahead of me, I just couldn't get free for it, and I never ever managed to do that if he had set out for me to do. And I wanted to, but I just couldn't.
Yep.
And I guess looking back, that had been a lot that I'd never really spoken out, and it had been underlying, and I just kept on doing, as long as I've got a job, I'll be okay. But it did affect me, because there was times throughout my career at fishing where I would be sacked, and I would be put out of a boat. But out the whole time that I was in my 20-year addiction in heroin, I was only one spell for a 2 or 3 months that I didn't have a job at all, because I was managed to keep working aboard the boat, but I just wasn't able to do it as well as I should have been, because it did affect me.
Or save any of the money that you made as well. So would that have been over 20 years at sea?
Just about 20, 30 grand every year, coming home with thousands of pounds, but just nothing to show for it. I was just deteriorating rapidly. I mind coming home for sea sometimes. By this time, I'd moved out of my mum and dad's, and I would be biding with my brother. We'd bide with my brother doing a flat in Northbrae Heads. I was close to my brother, even though we both had our issues, but I would mind coming home for sea, sometimes being home 4 or 5 days, and I would just come home and I would just as soon as I hit a pier, I would within my to go and score, to go and get heroin. And I was sold out for it. I loved getting high, I loved taking the stuff, because it just had a sense of belonging, a sense of pain. It just felt really, really good, and you didn't worry about the consequence at the time. But I mind coming home for sea sometimes, and a Friday say, I'm going to on a Monday, and I maybe wouldn't even have in a shower yet. That's the way it would be. Your mentality, your way of thinking, your attitude to life is just, you're blind to real life, Wow. It's just chaos, but you didn't realise it. And if it makes it worse is when you're going about with folk or other company that you're with at times doing the same thing, you didn't see it as any different. But I was mine at the age of 26, 27, coming home for sea, and my mum in the kitchen in her house, and I mind her saying to me, Andrew James, you're working so hard for your money. And I mind just bracking down tiller and thinking, this is just the way it's going to be. I'd kind of settled for, this is me, this is the way it's going to be. How can I ever change? And I still went on for years after this doing that I was still always doing, but just deteriorating rapidly all the time inside,
Incredible, is it, how it takes all your life, the power it has on you. But so, how far did that come till then? Because here we are sitting here, something's happened within the scale of your life, just gone downhill and gone no way. Was there a rock bottom point that you hit?
Well, so much people that I went to school with are no longer with us today. I was pal after pal. Fad went about with school that were dying, Can
I ask you that? Some of the guys that you hung out with, for even the Buchan Road chippers and things like that, through academy, are some of them gone? Do you want to mention some of them?
I mind being that I went holidays in 1994 to Ibiza. There was 5 of us, and there was only 2 of us left alive a day. 3 of the folk that we were there with are overdosed and hung themselves, and just despair, and it's so difficult, thinking really life lost at such an early age. And it just got to a place for, I didn't see any different. I just kept on living my life like that. But now, by this time, I'd now been introduced to crack cocaine, so I was taking crack and I was taking heroin together, which is even more spiralling out of control. And I had no hope, I had nothing to live for. I even got to the stage in my life where I didn't want to be here anymore. I seen if it didn't my mum and dad, if it had happened to their loon, if it had happened to both their loons that had such a good upbringing, I could see if it was doing to them, but I just didn't know how to change. I didn't know what to do. I would many times that I would even overdose. There was times I would walking up in the hospital, and even knowing if it had happened, just home for sea, off the boat, teen drugs, and walking up in the hospital. My mum beside herself, thinking that's her lost her load. And 2012, I can mind that my body, I was injecting, I'd been injecting for a long time by a stage, and my body was in a mess. But I mind in 2012, I had a blood clot in my leg, and I mind ended having to go up to the hospital. I had been in a Solid Rock Cafe, time back and forth, but always for the wrong reasons. Even though I was healthier, I just felt that, I guess, that I didn't care that I needed it, or didn't even care how to go about reaching out. Because I probably guessed that at that time I didn't feel I needed to, even though I was in a bad way. But I mean, in 2012, I think it was March, that I ended up in the hospital that I did because of my leg and a mess that it was. And I mean, my mum was with me. I can't mind how my mum was with me, but she was with me. She probably drove me up. But I mean, in the waiting room at night, I was beside myself. I was sobbing, because just rock bottom and nothing to live for. I wanted to die. That's the words I'd been saying. And I just mind this nurse saying to me, it doesn't have to be like this, Malone. and it was Grace West, and I'd never met Grace West or anything before, and she wasn't even the nurse that was attending to me at night, but she felt to come over and speak to me, and she started to tell me about the Solid Rock Cafe and Dolly and Paul and us, and I said, I ken all about the Solid Rock Cafe, I ken Dolly Wheel, I've been in a Solid Rock Cafe, but there was something at night that was said to me that just made me want to go and get help. I mean, they're telling me about God. I mean, they're telling me that God can change my life. She spoke about Teen Challenge. She spoke about that her sister and her man run a church in Aberdeen, and again, it was something was happening, and what she was saying to me, and I just mind coming out of the hospital at night and saying, I'm going to go and see Dolly tomorrow. I'm going to go and see Dolly, and I mind the next day is when I went down to the Solid Rock Cafe. Seen Dolly, I remember Dolly, I was in his office up the stairs and he prayed for me. I kent Dolly, but I hadn't really been at Polly with him or at that time, but I mean, Dolly always said that he kent, there was something within me that he kent God was going to change my life. I was willing to give it a go, you can. And I mind coming into the cafe and Dolly sitting me down and telling me a bit about his story and praying for me. And that was the start of a massive journey, a process, a change in my life, you can. I was something that had impacted me, that I was something kind of stirring up within me that I'm going to go and get help, I'm going to go and give this a go, because I didn't think to live for. I was just gone. I didn't want to be here anymore, you can. And it was just, fits a point, you can. But now I was thinking, I'm feeling good, there's something different here happening, you can.
Aye. I remember I was in the Solid Rock when you came in one of the times, and you could just see somebody at the end of themselves, there was no life there, but there was still a really fine guy that you could see, you know, if God got a hold, and if you got a hold of God. Yeah. And so then,
because I thought I'd been taught from my mum and dad and the folk that I'd spent my time with, you know, I wasn't a bad guy, I wasn't a coarse guy, I could see good in folk, and I didn't want to be living the way that I was, but I'd got to a stage where I didn't know how to change. But that was the start. I mind we had filled in an application for him with Dolly in the office for going into Teen Challenge. I hadn't a clue what Teen Challenge even was, really. I didn't even care if it would look like, if it would happen. But I was taking it on board. I was something, I'm willing to give one thing a go to kind of get different to what I am. I want to feel better. I want to mark something in my life. I want to change, because I don't know how I'll. But if you're saying I can, I'm willing. I'm your man. I'll give you anything a go. Filled in the application for him, got it sent up to Sonnybrae. Was up to Sonnybrae for an interview. This was in March still, 2012. Got a date for going into Sonnybrae, which was the 4th of April 2012. But even before that, just gone to the cafe, I would be going down to the cafe every single day. My mum would be coming with me. Dolly, just every single day, spending time with Dolly, and I got to meet Julie, Hannah, their Baron, she was just 9 months old at the time. And I remember I was a street church, what happened in the Solid Rock Cafe, and that was when John Pritikin came and shared his story. And I just I was sobbing, I was bawling greeting, I was emotional, because I was hearing positive, real change, life-changing stuff, and this can happen to me, and I wanted to give it a go. I was willing to do one thing a go. So anyway, we'd got the dates for me to go into Sonnybrae, the 4th of April. Dolly had picked me up at 1 o'clock. I think it was 2 o'clock was my intake date for going in. And Dolly picked me up. My mum, even though I'd been biding with my brother before, because I tried to take me in life that I did before, a while before that, and I ended up back biding with my mum and dad, because they wanted to look after me, watch over me, thing. And they were beside themselves for their load. And my mum always said about an issue sleeping. She couldn't sleep. And I see that day, I remember when Dolly picked me up to take me to Sonnybrae. There was a Teen Challenge Sonnybrae leaflet that my mum had. And see, when Dolly picked me up to take me up to get into rehab, my mum fell asleep on the couch that day with the Sonnybrae leaflet, that or Loon's going to want to get better, he's going to want to get freedom, he's going to want to get help. I mean, Dolly had picked him up and he's now driving him up to Sunnybray to take him in to start a programme. I mean, he gave me a Bible. I'd never owned a Bible. I didn't ken, if I tried to get a D for me, that would have been my attitude at that time, because it didn't make any sense to me, you can. But I mean, I opened it up and he'd written something on it for me, you can, Jim. 4th April 2012, Thursday and Teen Challenge. I hope and pray that the pages in this book come alive to you.
Wow.
This is just the beginning. Trust God with your future. And he wrote a Neil Lennon quote. And then he gave me a verse, John 10, verse 10. The thief comes only to steal, kill and destroy, but now I have come that they may have life and life to the full. Love, Dolly, Julie and Hannah. I didn't get it. It didn't make any sense to me, but I loved the Neil Lennon quote thing, because it was Aberdeen Celtic thing, you can. But that was Dolly gave me that Bible, and then that was me up to get my intake into Sunnybray, that it was, and it was the 4th of April. Nae really ken on what I was going to. I kent urban folk. I was folk that was actually in there that I'd kent folk that had actually done it, but I still didn't ken what it was going to look like in me being there. Went in, got my intake done, and I just felt, I didn't ken if it was going to happen, but I kent it was going to be good. I kent something was definitely, I was a stirring up, and I kent my life was going to change. I didn't ken how, but I just felt better than what I had done previously up until this point. And so I remember this was the 4th of April 2012. It's the last time I ever used anything. And I've been clean since that very day to this day. And it's the best feeling ever. You can never ever be dependent on something to waking up when you get up in the day, you can. But I mean, it was just before Easter Sunday. And Easter Sunday, in Sunnybray, the programme, they go to King's Church in Aberdeen. That Grace had told me about in a hospital that night, because here's me now going to walk to King's Church. Just came out the minibus, walking up the stairs to go into the service at church. Here's folk that I went through school with. Here's folk that I'd maybe used at one time in my life with on the door, on the welcome team at church. And I'm like, what's going on here? What are you doing here? And I was something about him. And they were bawling greeting because they'd now seen me, kenning that because the guys had went there every Sunday, so they kent about Sunnybray guys coming, kenning that I'd now went into the programme, kenning that my life's going to want to change if I'm willing to give it a go. And I was something about it. I mean, it was Mark Brown, Murray and John Alexander, Paul Beaton, they were out the door, they were all in that service that day. Barry McAllister, other guy I went to school with, and I just mind him giving my hug, and they were just delighted that they were. Big dealer in the time,
Barry McAllister.
Yeah, you can, it was just, it was folk I was at school, it's like, what are you doing here? Me, I was blind, I was lost, I hadn't a clue really about life and the whole church thing, or if I went to church, if I didn't. But I mind seeing them even then thinking, I want something I thought guys have gotten. Yep. I was something in him that was attractive to me, and I wanted to be like. And that was just me. It was me into the very first service that I'd ever been to, and kind of started to hear the worship music. I was mind thinking, is this Christian music? This music's brilliant. You can? And I loved the music. It was Hillsong, Jesus Culture, whatever it was. I didn't care that there was music like that in church.
Yep.
My idea of church was songs of praise on the TV on a Sunday, singing hymns. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I didn't care that Christian and church services was actually like this. So this was all new to me, and again, I just fell in love with the music and the worship, and again, it was just a process of time, and again, the change and started to take place in my life. Again. So that was the 4th of April, and the 7th of April, say Easter Sunday. I went through the programme, started to, people were big guest speakers coming up to Sunnybray, and I started to hear all stuff about love and acceptance, and that I belong, and that I'm worth it, that I matter, that there's a purpose, that there's a plan for my life. And that's really got me. I didn't really ken it at the time, but God was speaking to me. God had got my attention. And the 10th of May, 2012, I remember it was the day that I became a Christian. That was the very day, 10:30 at night. Was a defining moment for me. I remember the legend George Bain led me in a prayer in my room up in Sunnybray at 10:30 at night, and that was when I became a Christian. And again, that was a defining moment for me, because I always remember after that. I wasn't feared, I wasn't embarrassed to tell folk. Even though I didn't ken all the scriptures, I didn't ken enough, if you like, but it was a process of learning, but I just kent that I'm becoming a Christian, I'm real about this. I just fell in love with God, I fell in love with Jesus, and I ended up in a hunger for the scriptures. I would learn to pray, I would develop a prayer life, and just, ken, there was something happening in my life. I was excited about my future.
Fantastic. And then coming to the end of the programme, graduating, and then you went down to do the School of Ministry as well. You wanted to, do something more for God. So
Yeah.
And then obviously after that, coming back up and starting to full circle, working and helping other people. So
then I would do the School of Ministry when I was just finished, after I'd finished at Sunnybrae. I wasn't right sure what I was going to do next. But I'd been encouraged because I was serious about this life. I really wanted to make a difference if I could in somebody else's life and learn about how to reach out to be an influence to other folk, to get something if I'd now received for God in my own personal life. So the School of Ministry was going to be my next stage, which was 6 months doing in England. So I went down there 2013, I think it was 11th of March that I started the School of Ministry. And that was brilliant. That was a whole different culture for me, which was now like a upper level for like the Teen Challenge programme, where I started getting teachings on evangelism and reaching out to folk and just growing in my faith and my journey with God. It was really a great thing for me. I mind being up the road one particular night, one particular weekend, I was at a meeting at King's Church in Aberdeen, and I just sensed, I didn't ken, but I thought that God had said, come home. I didn't really ken too much about it, but I remember I went over to Paul Beaton and said to him, God, come on home. I didn't think nothing of it, but I went back down to the School of Ministry the next day, and I remember it was on the Monday, and on a Wednesday I got a phone call for Gordon Cruden, saying, Jim, there's a job coming up in Sunnybrae, I think that you're the right guy for it, it's up to you, here pray, here think about it, and get back to me if you think if you're willing to take it on. I couldn't right away that it was kind of like confirmation if I had thought for the Sunday. So that was me. I ended up being back up the road to Sunnybrae. That was the 23rd of June in 2014. In a new role as a support worker and reaching out and helping folk that was in a position once as me. I always said when I was in the programme that one day I would love to come back and work here. Near really can, is that going to happen? You can, but this was like a dream for me coming real. I wanted to make a difference in somebody's life. If just something that I could do could benefit them. But then I came back to the Broch. 2018, I think it was. I came back home and came back to church. Obviously, Dolly, best pal, just been a rock for me, just solid. I was doing life with him and meeting up, would do a thing together, going trips together, I would be at his house, we're on the phone, have you, and just been massive for me, same with Julie and the Bairns and that, just I've been a massive part of their family. I wouldn't be for a arm a day without his help, without his support, without his love, and it was just fantastic.
Really, I mean, you got your own flat at that time as well. Life going great, living the dream, living for God, helping other people. But was there something else that could happen? And if it did happen, really?
Yeah. So I remember, since I came back with Broch, I ended up getting a mortgage. I got my first house, which was a miracle in itself. I never ever thought I would own anything. I'd also been driving my own car and stuff, but got my house, and then I remember I was one night at Dolly and Julie and Ashley and Matthew round my house for supper. Would I was do that, would do breakfast at the Connons, would do supper, whatever, at each other's houses now and again. And I remember was speaking about relationships, and I was wanted to settle down. I wanted to settle down and live this life, and that was, if one thing was missing, that was it for me, And I always mind, Ashley had said to me in my house at night, fit about Billy. I didn't think too much about it, fit about Billy. That was my words, Billy herself had come through the programme, a Teen Challenge programme, and I remember the Teen Challenge graduation in the church. I remember when she'd spoken her testimony at night, I always remember that I was very caught with what she was saying, about how I thought she was very, very transparent, and I love what she said about her kids. It was very real, it was very, very, very honest, she wasn't anything out there, if you like. It was just, I really was impacted with what she said. Didn't think nothing too much of it again. But I remember, I ended up getting her, added her on Facebook, like you do. But I says, that's it, I'm leaving it here. Because I didn't care, I wasn't sure about anything, fit the deal was, am I going any further or that? I was just kind of a lad. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a message from Billy, going, hiya, how you doing? One thing led to another. We started communicating, started speaking back and forth on a daily basis. And I just, one night, I offered her, you want to go out on a date? You want to go for a meal? And I remember I went out for a curry, went up to Barn for a curry. And she was learning to drive, so I said, I'll give you a show to my car, I'll take you to the aerodrome and give you a show to the car. And that just, that was it. One thing led to another. And so I got one thing led to another. One day I went round and seen Billy's dad and asked her dad for if it would be okay for a green light to get his daughter's hand in marriage. And the Sunday I'd picked her, she'd now got a job. She'd now started working at Benaya. So she was doing the same as me, support worker as well, which was a dream for her as well. Both of us came through it and now helping somebody else that was in a position that we once were. And I picked her up for her work, and when we got to the foot of the road, we'd turn left into the Broch, or you can go right, we'd take you towards Aberdeen. And I remember, far we gone, but she didn't ken, but I had a plan in place. I took her, we went to Donator Castle for I went down in one knee and I started marrying her. And she just, it was just a fantastic day. Of course, she said yes, and we went to the Silver Darling restaurant and had a fancy meal and that was it. It was wedding planning after that. Again, and in the midst of this as well, again, I'd now been back in a relationship with my son. Again, my son Connon was now a heavily part of my life, and that was really fantastic for me as well. Again, I'd now been kind of dad again, and kind of would spoken about certain things, and kind of was being a part in others' lives. So that was really, it was really a good, really a great thing for me, for us both, for us all. And then 2020 last year, so we'd set a date for getting married, which was the 8th of February.
Just in time before it all
8th of February, and that was just a fantastic, a special day. It wasn't just us, it was for the community, for the church, the people that were a part of it, and how everybody came together and made it all about us. It was just incredible. What a special day. I remember when we was getting married, if I would get to marry us, when me and Billy was going out, she'd once said, I says, if we was ever getting married, how would you want to marry you? She said, Lisa. So I says, okay. After we got engaged, I'd said, no, you're going to ask Lisa. And Lisa was very honoured. And then, so the February the 8th came and we got married. It was just an incredible day that it was. I'll never forget it. You can, Billy's mum still watches the wedding video all the time, still up until this day. And we watch it with greet. You can. We went on our honeymoon to Lanzarote that we did, and we got home just in time before COVID, before we ended up in lockdown. You can. Praise God.
And then just in time. So then COVID, and I mean, obviously, there's been so many good things happening for you, but it's been such a challenging time for everybody, and those challenges came for yourself. And how did you then? Well, tell us about it, and then how you managed to deal with that.
Yeah, well, so we was loving married life, and obviously COVID came, but we were married, so I think it was great. You can, no bothered, still I'm more time with my wife, because we're going to be home all the time. But the 23rd of April, I just finished my work. It was a Thursday morning, and I'd come home. I would normally work till a Thursday night at 5, but that day I'd finished the Thursday morning because I was getting my work in on the Saturday. And I'd been home in the house. Billy was actually working, she was at Benaya working, and I got a phone call from my dad. I got a phone call. My dad phoned and said that, what's the police just off the phone, Andrew James, That's Brian been funded in his flat. It was such a shock, and even though I remember even like 3 weeks before it, myself and Billy had seen my brother Brian, and we'd seen him outside a chemist, and I mean, the very words that I says to Billy was, we've not got long left with him. Even though I didn't really think, you can, that it would become a reality, but I just couldn't believe it. My dad had said that, and I couldn't believe it. It was the hardest thing ever to deal with. And I was thinking my mum and dad, and that's Brian actually gone, and I didn't really care to do. I mean, after I was going to walk right up into the car up to see my mum and dad, try and comfort them, because it wasn't good. But I mean, in my car, the very first thing I did was phone my wife Billy, and she came home right away. Mm-hmm. She came right home from Benaya, and then I phoned Dolly. And says, that's Brian gone. It was really, really tough. And then I phoned Gordon. But if it was comforting for me, is that I had them, that folk that had spoken all, because they were broken with me. They were broken for me. Mm-hmm. But I got comfort in Connon that I wasn't alone in it. So it was really, really tough. And Brian he'd been in his house for a couple of days before he was actually found, and you just didn't think that it's going to happen to you, even though I'd heard stories, and I care other so much other folk that had lost family members, and even though, like I'd said, that when we're not going to get along with Brian, you didn't think it's really going to happen. So it was really challenging time, because it was the heart of COVID, so I didn't even manage to give my mum a hug, and my dad a hug. Wow. And we got 15 folk at his funeral. Right. But Dolly, he just gave him a send-off that was just special. And my nephew, my brothers Lou and Scott, again, we came together for it and getting through it. Kind of brought us so much, like how much we appreciate our family and the folk that are here for us and the folk that love us, again. So it was the 23rd of April, and Brian was buried. His funeral was on the 4th of May, and we got 15 folk at it, and Dolly gave him a send-off that he actually deserved. Again, Brian had been in the coffee. I just wanted my brother, even though he was like that, I just wanted him to get something because there's one thing for sure, he'd definitely experienced the love of God in the coffee many a times, and he'd been there. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really challenging. Again, you didn't think it's going to happen to you. Because my mom, I was thinking my mom and dad, and to my mom's, I always said that since I've gotten well, that every day is like Mother's Day new. You can see and getting our loan back. So it was really, really tough. But my mom and dad have been really so good through it. Again, since Brian passed, and appreciating, they appreciated the comfort and words that the church, the folk that are important to us, and the condolences, the messages, the phone calls, the flowers, all that. Again, it was really, we were blown away by folks' encouragement and support through it. So that was a really, really challenging time. Again, you didn't appreciate something until it's gone. Sometimes you can be hard, and I didn't agree with the way Brian was living his life. But I always thought there might be just glimmer of hope that he could get something I've got, and and so it was a really, really challenging time for us. But I was thankful. We got great comfort for God in that time, because I think how difficult it could have been if we didn't have the Lord in our lives at that time. Despite being able to give my mum a cuddle and stuff. And then that was it. That was Brian. He got a funeral, but then it was good news. came after it, after Brian's passing. You can, as hard as that was, my stepdaughter Jenna, she was pregnant, and on the 18th of May, our granddaughter Eva was born. You can, these things pass. The feelings of sadness. God's the God of the good, and He's the God of the bad. And He brings comfort in that tough times. He does. And when Eva May was born, like, it was just going, what a blessing that she's been to us. She's going to be 8 months all shortly, and we just love Hannah. She's such a blessing to the family, and seeing her changing day by day, and you can the difference that she's made. We've had her to church a couple of times as well, because we want to do that. And Jenna said that we can take her to church as much as we want, so that's something we'll definitely be doing again.
What a blessing. And obviously something needed as well. When you see the people that were round about you this year through the hardest times, losing Brian and that, it's amazing how God's blessed you with so much round about you as well. And you know, you've done so well. Like, it's amazing for us to look on and see if it's happened in your life and if it's still happening. And you know, what a great example and encouragement as well. On a lot of folk have lost things this year, whether it's been a lot of folk have lost loved ones, a lot of folk have lost jobs and relationships and different things, but you know, to keep that grip on God and to keep being thankful for Him and everything, it's been great for us to see and look on at and be inspired by that, Jim. I ken that you've got more to say to us, and we're probably going to go a bit of time of worship just now, but I want to just say thank you for being so open, for being so brave, for being a great encouragement, being just a pretty special guy for all of us. You're just a blessing to us. I just want to say that, and I'm looking forward to just a little message that you've got for somebody that's listening. And we're going to go and cut to a worship song just now, but I just want to encourage you that you come back and just hear what Jim's got to say just for a few moments at the end of the service today. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
My God will make a way.
Hey, hello again. I just want to share with you for a few minutes. The church is going to be starting a new theme called Rebuild. And I just want to share a very familiar verse that helped me in my early days of coming to the Lord. People might see this verse as cliche, as it's commonly used on signs or plaques or in photos on walls. It's even known as a teen challenge verse. But Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you a future." It's a verse, I guess, that sounds very good, and I've heard it plenty being taken out of context. And it's also spoken as a promise for people for grieving or discouraged. But before it can be applied, a verse needs to be understood. A verse can only have one meaning, but it can have many applications. At this time, the Israelites were in exile as a result of disobedience. And the prophet Jeremiah had confronted this false prophet called Hananiah that had proclaimed that God was going to free the Israelites after 2 years. But Jeremiah had came and put that right and stated this verse. And he'd said, just before Jeremiah 29:11, to pray and seek peace for where they were actually at that time. Because the Israelites thought they were going to begin home and they were going to be released for exile. But God's plan for them at this time was not to take them away from difficulty, but it was for them to stay in the midst of difficulty and to help prosper the nation that had enslaved them. It wasn't going to be 2 years, it was going to be 70 years. The truth of this story is that God won't keep us for difficulty, but he will be right there in the midst, helping us in times of difficulty. And for us, most of us, for the last 10 months or so, we can say that we've been experiencing times of difficulty. Everything has changed. The world has kind of went into chaos. But the reality is that God has never changed. He stayed the same, and we can still hold on to what he says, to be encouraged to do our life and to live our life for him. To rebuild our lives in 2021, the first thing we need is the promise. We need to take hold of the promises of God and pray them over our lives. This verse, when it was spoken, was for a specific people, a specific time in their lives, a time of difficulty, and that could be you today. Even though the Israelites didn't account for the outcome was going to be at this time, they still now had hope and something to take a hold of. Our faith in God doesn't keep us from difficulty, but it makes our relationship with him stronger in times of difficulty. The Apostle Paul says that as we put our hope in God, it will not lead to disappointment. When we accepted Jesus, we were promised eternal life, and it's a promise that we live by today. Billy Graham, a famous quote for him, says, "From one end of the Bible to the other, God assures us that he will never go back on his promises." As you've already heard from me tonight already, when we experienced the loss of my brother last year, the promises of God was something that kept us going. We got great comfort in them, despite the times of difficulty that we were going through. And I want to encourage you today, take encouragement for the promise that God has got for you today. COVID-19, lockdown, isolation, social distancing does not keep us from the promises of God. When we have nothing left but God, we discover that God is enough. Nahum 1 verse 7 says, "The Lord is good, a refuge in times of trouble, and he cares for those who trust in him." Be encouraged. God's promise is for you today. The second point, to rebuild in our lives in 2021, we need to have the right people. The right people provide the right influence. Even the Israelites, even though they had hope in the promise, they also had each other. And for this promise to become the reality, 70 years was a long time, but it was generational. It was kingdom building. Some of them wouldn't have even lived this out, but they had passed the promise on to the generation that was coming up behind them. With the right people in our worlds to influence in the right way, there is power when we are united together. And God never ever intended for us to do this journey alone. God's people are a body, and we would never be where we are without these people that have helped us and passed the baton on to us in our lives. Together is what makes us brave when life makes us scared. The right influence brings out the best in us. So even though we are in this season of lockdown just now, give someone a message today. Give them a phone call. Encourage them and let them know that you are thinking about them, because that could be the turning point in someone's life today. Wise words have a powerful impact on someone, and someone needs to hear them today. We know the saying, it's not always fit with thee, but rather far we. The third point to rebuild in our lives in 2021 is the process. We cannot have the progress without the process. For faith in God is a journey, and for us to grow in faith is a process. To rebuild in our lives in 2021, we need to take hold of the promise, we need to have the right people, and we also need to go through the process. For the process does not happen overnight, but in order to get somewhere, we have to start somewhere and go through the process. It could have been so easy for these Israelites thinking they were going home after 2 years, but then they get hit by a curveball of 70 years. They had to learn to trust the process in going through that. Philippians 3:13 and 14 says, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal, to win the prize which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Hey, I pray that you've received something for this message today. I encourage you for you to rebuild in your life in 2021. Take a hold of the promise, connect to the right people, and be willing to go through the process of growing and rebuilding in God. The one thing that God cannot work with is unwillingness. Be encouraged today. God bless you.
Hey, thank you so much, Jim. That was a brilliant message, and what an incredible life story. Jim, you're an inspiration, and we are so appreciative that you've been able to share that with us here today. Maybe you've been impacted with something Jim said there, or maybe you want to choose Jesus. You know, you can get in contact with us today, and someone will be in contact with you. Maybe you've got questions about life and questions about faith, and we're going to be starting something called Alpha at church. You know, usually we'd be doing it in this hall just here, and usually we'd be getting supper and food together, but obviously we can't be doing that. But we're starting Alpha on Zoom, and it's a great way for you to get involved and actually start to tackle some of life's biggest questions. That starts on January the 17th, which is next Sunday. You know, we would love for you to come along and get involved with that. Please email alpha@aogcentral.co.uk if you would like to get your name down for that. The Zoom links will be emailed out and will be put on social media. So please look out for them, and we would love to see you there. At the start of this year, we are committing ourselves to prayer. You know, we've got a few things coming up for you over the next couple of weeks, which we'll explain to you at a later date. But you know, we're going to be signing up ourselves to be fasting, to be praying, and also to be prayer walking. You know, we're committing to do some big things, but it's because we believe in prayer, and we believe in bringing these things to God, because He is a God who can do the impossible and do the incredible. So keep your eyes peeled on social media for more information coming up about that. really hope you've enjoyed today's episode as we've joined together to watch this online. You know, one more thing. Maybe you've been struggling just now. Maybe you feel like you're in a little bit of despair, or maybe you feel lonely. You know, sometimes lockdown can do that to us. You know, we want to say that we are here for you. You know, you can email us, you can call us, you can message us on Facebook. You know, someone will be in contact with you during this time. You know, we really hope that you have a great week, and we really hope that you stay safe. I'm just going to pray for us as we finish just now. Father, we thank you for every single person that's watching just now. We thank you for Jim, and we thank you for his message, Lord, and we thank you for Alison as she shared communion with us. Father, we just really pray that everyone who's watching just now, Lord, would experience something of your peace and something of your hope. Amen. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.